Award seasons are funny. It can be hard to avoid getting swept up in the hype of a big show, but it's just as hard to avoid feeling disappointed when they're over. Occasionally, we'll get upset over an objective snub, like the fact that Psychonauts 2, one of the most ambitious and cohesive works of narrative design in video game history, somehow lost Best Narrative at this year's Game Awards to a fun Marvel action RPG with some good writing and branching dialogue. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Guardians made you really sad or whatever. You really like the story. It's a good story. But does it express the wallowing, isolating sorrow of alcoholism through a platforming challenge? What do its combat mechanics say about its protagonist? Does it understand how It's a Small World is a perfect metaphor for the self-aggrandizing delusions of a despotic narcissist? Does it make you feel, through the art of tutorialization alone, the dehumanizing existence of an unpaid intern? What do its collectibles tell you about a man's soul? This is like giving Best Animation to Yuri on Ice the same year Mob Psycho 100 premiered, which I guess would have been a way more accessible example for most of the people in my anime watching audience, but I'm still mad about the Psychonauts thing, and damn it, I'm gonna use this platform to bitch about it and soft sell all of you guys on my personal game of the year. That is just a personal preference though, and while 2021's Game of the Year winner does also upset me on some level, that's for the far more common cause behind award whining, that I wanted a thing that better suits my personal tastes to win instead. In most years, at most awards shows, and in most categories, there are multiple nominees that could be valid winners depending on what the voters value in art, be that widespread community impact, emotional complexity, clever plot structure, raw technical excellence. It really could be anything. And when the people making the decisions emphasize a different subjective anything than the one that you care about the most, that just sucks. But people disagree with each other about stuff like that all the time, and we all just have to learn to live with that. That's not the problem that prompted me to make this video. Picking Anime of the Year for 2021 isn't impossible because there's no way to reach a real community consensus on which series truly deserves it. That's always been the case. What's different this year is I can't even reach a consensus with myself. Heck, I can't even narrow it down to a top 10. Should I care more about one of the greatest living anime directors teaming up with a legendarily innovative studio to masterfully craft her own unique interpretation of the Japanese equivalent of Shakespeare? Or is it more notable that the animation god behind One Punch Man has finally been given the chance to channel his incredible talent into a philosophically rich, experimentally ambitious story entirely of his own creation? Is it more significant that one of the most beloved and influential epic fantasy light novels of all time has finally been given the Peter Jackson tier adaptation it always deserved? Or that one of the most exciting, boundary-pushing, epic sci-fi light novels in recent memory has been put in the hands of a truly visionary new director and is already shaping up to be one of the next decade's biggest franchises? Or does the brilliant, emotionally affirming conclusion of ReZero Season 2 trump them both? Should we be paying tribute to the fandom-shaping eras that are ending with the final seasons of Fruits Basket and Attack on Titan? Or to those just beginning with Komi-san and Jujutsu Kaisen? Does my heart ache more for the endless sorrow of To Your Eternity's Fushi, or for the deeply personal pain inextricably tied to the American immigrant experience of Megalobox 2's Nomad? And speaking of sequels to my favorite underdog anime, what's more deserving of a signal boost? Iruma-kun again? Zombieland Saga Revenge? Dynazenon? Or should I disregard my current cult faves, reach for the conclusion that all of my Cowboy Bebop research has led me to, and finally get into Lupin III. Of course, I gotta call attention to link clicks somewhere too. The Donghua Revolution ain't gonna fight itself, but at the same time, I can't exactly not rehash my Avatar is an anime argument when there's a Western anime as excellent as Arcane on the table, now can I? Digging deeper, is my artist soul more stirred by Vivi's century-long search for the meaning of meaning, or by Yatora Yaguchi's late but life-changing discovery of the power of personal expression? As a theater kid, do I relate more to the vicious, animalistic status competition of Beastars Season 2, or the vicious, animalistic status competition of Kageki Shoujo? Or should I underdoggedly cheer on Mars Red for giving me the closest experience I've had to going out and seeing a great play since lockdown began? And then, perhaps most importantly, as an avid scholar of advancements in anime artistry, am I more in love with the meticulously engineered narrative clockwork and delightful dialogue embellishments of Odd Taxi? Or the heartbreakingly, breathtakingly gorgeous and evocative visual storytelling of Ranking of Kings? How could I, or anyone for that matter, ever possibly choose between my two beloved, rounded sons, Otokawa and Boji? I haven't even had time to watch more than an episode or two of all the shows I think have the potential to earn the crown, and watching anime is literally my job. I mean, I kind of did that to myself by taking on several huge retrospectives this year, deciding to investigate a cult, and committing to seasonal work in the trash mines. But even if I was only watching the good shit, I still wouldn't be through with all of the quality content 2021 had on offer. We should never place too much stock in aggregate review scores, but there are 30 anime this year with an MAL rating over 8.0. That's 10 more than 2018, 9 more than 2019. Not even the eternally legendary years of 2006, 2009, and 2011 come anywhere close. I don't think it's even a debate at this point that 2021 was peak anime. You could argue for an asterisk next to that record, since COVID pushed a lot of 2020's most promising shows back and gave their creators more time to polish them up, but even if you count X-Arm against 2021, I mean, the math does get a lot closer, but it's still not even close. What I'd very much like to do now is find an answer to this conundrum I'm in, and I don't think I'll find it making apples to oranges comparisons between a bunch of shows I love for wildly different reasons. Like, yeah, I could do the gun to my head thing and make a snap decision that Odd Taxi's the best anime this year, but no, Boji, stop crying. You're my favorite, I promise. No, what am I doing? That walrus is my bro for life. But if we're talking bros for life, can anyone top the majesty of Aoi Todo? See, we're just going nowhere fast. I'm a Phoenix Wright fanboy though, so I know the secret to answering questions that seem unanswerable. You just gotta turn them on your head. Instead of asking what should be anime of the year, what I should be asking is, what even is an anime of the year? Before we get into that, though, a quick word from today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. It is currently the culturally mandated season of giving, but if you haven't been using ExpressVPN, you've already given plenty to your internet service provider without realizing it every time you've gone online this year. With ExpressVPN, you can keep your browsing data entirely your own by encrypting it and rerouting all of your web traffic through one of their high-speed servers in 94 different countries, which has the added benefit of opening up the internet by letting you bypass region locks on streaming platforms and other sites. When you go into the internet raw, on the other hand, ISPs like AT&T and Verizon can track and log every move you make, whether you browse incognito or not. And they're legally allowed to sell that data to advertisers for big profits on top of what you're already paying them in overpriced packages and sneaky hidden fees. Thanks to ExpressVPN, though, I'm done with that entirely. One click in their easy-to-use apps and browser extensions is all it takes to make every one of my browsing choices, no matter how weird and revealing it might be, truly anonymous. Give yourself the gift of peace of mind and privacy this year with the #1 VPN in the world according to TechRadar and Mashable. Just visit expressvpn.com/basement or click the link in the doobly-doo and you can get 3 months of premium service free today. Now back to the topic at hand. One of the trickiest things about figuring out what anime of the year really means is that the definition changes depending on who's handing out the title. When a YouTuber like me or a solo blogger declares our anime or game of the year, for the most part it's just an excuse to recommend a list of personal favorites. We can put in a bit more effort to judge and rank shows based on semi-objective criteria like Under the Scope does, and I used to do with my weird best opening of the year videos no one watched. But even if I'm actively trying to come up with a list of titles that accomplished something I find artistically or technically impressive, my ranking will still be shaped by my limited technical knowledge and what I personally find to be impressive. To bring things back to the 2017 Yuri on Ice Awards, that was very obviously the wrong choice for Best Animation. But whether the right choice was Flip Flappers, Mob Psycho, or even Cabaneri is ultimately a question of tastes and priorities. And that's just trying to balance all the ways an anime can excel in one specific field. With Anime of the Year, you're trying to weigh every single aspect of a given production against every single aspect of every single other production that aired the same year. And that calculus can be very different depending on if you're a story gal, an animation guy, or a sound design ascended being. Hell, it can be different depending on if you're a story gal who prizes tight plotting, or one who prefers excellent dialogue and deep characters. I mean, most years it would be. This year, Odd Taxi's story is the top contender any way you slice it, but again, that's only if writing is your top priority, and even then it has to be by a wide margin. Ranking of Kings has an excellent script in its own right, and obviously runs circles around the Taxi show's more limited animation style, though that simpler animation of course has its own charms, and the cinematography in that show is just, damn it, I promised myself I wouldn't do this. And that whole discussion is still assuming that Anime of the Year means Best Anime of the Year, which seems self-evident, but is it really? Sure, with awards handed out by the staff of larger enthusiast outlets or expert panels like, say, the Academy, determining that is often the stated goal, but in my experience, having worked for game blogs through a few award seasons, those discussions frequently devolve into bargaining between contributors who all want to shine a share of the spotlight on their personal faves, with the biggest awards chosen mainly for the sake of keeping the audience happy. And if we're talking about the Academy Awards, it's pretty much an open secret that Best Picture, more often than not, means movie from the person who actually made the best movie 5 years ago, but didn't win it because we had to give that award to the guy we snubbed back in 1993. Or failing that, it can also mean historical movie that we, as baby boomers, chose to vote for to feel a bit better about totally failing to live up to the greatest generation. There are exceptions, of course. The DICE Awards panel is by and large filled with people who actually know their shit about the ins and outs of making video games and are generally good at zeroing in on a game, be it AAA or indie, that significantly moved the conversation around games forward that year, but even they fuck up from time to time and give it to Fallout 4 the same year Bloodborne, Undertale, and The Witcher 3 happened, which is actually exactly what you'd expect to happen in a year like that, or the one that we anime dweebs are in now. When there are so many potential winners that are all so clearly deserving of accolades on their own distinct merits, the segment of the voting block with truly refined taste ends up getting split between all the equally excellent choices, while a big mediocre thing with a ton of marketing behind it can pick up a majority share of votes through name recognition alone. That's also what happens almost 100% of the time with any award that's based 100% on audience voting. In some rare cases, one particular work, like, say, Made in Abyss, will be self-evidently exceptional enough to overcome the popularity contest inertia with word of mouth and beat the My Hero Season 2 of its bracket, and having been backstage when that thing happened, I know firsthand how thrilling it can be to see a community come together in support of something truly great like that. But at the same time, the excitement we all felt backstage at the Anime Awards that year was a direct result of the mounting dread that we'd all been feeling up to that point as My Pico Academia swept through 7 of the 9 other awards it was up for. And lest we forget, the year before that, Yuri on Ice went 7 for 7, converting its nominations to wins. Even though Rakugo Shinju and Mob were right goddamn there. I mean, come on! If only I could take all this salt inside me back in time to melt that ice before it was too late. Anyway, largely because they had 2 years of results like that in a row, Crunchyroll decided to switch to a hybrid system where audience votes count for 50% of the total scores in each category, while the other half is determined by a panel of expert judges that also selects the nominees. The output of this new system still leaves a big chunk of the anime community displeased each year, but the biggest sweep since it was implemented was 4 wins for My Hero Academia Season 3, and a much more diverse set of shows ends up getting multiple nominations each year, so it's definitely been an improvement. But then, why would they risk devolving into another popularity contest by keeping the audience votes at all? Partly because in the age of social media, people tend to care more about awards they have a say in, as Jeff Keighley's proven year after year in the gaming space, but also because what the audience has to say does matter, especially when it comes to Anime of the Year. Because the category isn't just about which anime is the best one, if that's even a question anyone's capable of answering. As soon as more than one person is involved in the decision-making, it's also about the anime that made the biggest impact on everyone, that did the most to define the great conversation this year for a majority of folks who are into anime, or movies, or video games, depending on the award we're talking about. And we need only look back to that one time Star Wars A New Hope lost Best Picture to Annie fucking Hall to see how bad expert panels can really be at understanding that side of this equation. You need a degree of expert curation, particularly in the nomination process, to ensure that an award doesn't just reward the most efficient pandering to the lowest common denominator, and it's important for expert opinions to count toward the winner, too. Excellence in craft matters, and you need judges who can make an informed judgment of each nominee's technical qualities. But at the end of the day, we're talking about art here, and there's no fixed technical method for identifying what truly moves and resonates with people. If you want to know that, you gotta go straight to the crowdsource. I guess the big point I'm rambling my way toward here is that Anime of the Year is at once an extremely loaded term and also fundamentally undefinable. It means best made anime of the last 365 days, and most popular anime of the year, and most likely to influence other anime from now on, and the anime that most affected me personally, and the anime that I and my friends couldn't stop watching, and a bazillion other things, depending on who you ask and what context you ask them in. Usually, one show will fit enough of those things better enough than other shows that I'm able to land on a definitive enough answer for all intents and purposes, but in 2021, that's just not the case. For the writer in me, Odd Taxi's the anime of the year, but for the part that's a fantasy fiend, it's easily Ranking of Kings. For my inner tech dweeb, 86 takes the crown, the musical part of my heart really wants to give it to Vivi, and the sugar high hybrid 90s kid deep down in my soul rejects any answer that's not Skate the Infinity. Do so many choices being valid mean that none of them are? Or is even trying to pick a winner to begin with, even in years when it's not this confusing, an exercise in futility? I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm just happy I got to watch a buttload of great anime this year, and that I made it through this whole discussion without having to talk about Time Magazine or Elon Musk. Wait. Fuck. I'm Geoff Thew, professional YouTuber, signing out from wherever the comment section on this video isn't.